on va accueillir Felipe Sardi, qui a une ferme qui s'appelle la Palma et Tucan en Colombie, et qui a une autre ferme, Flying Pumas au Panama. Je suis allé dans sa ferme il y a à peine un mois, et j'ai été frappé par le projet. C'est-à-dire qu'on voit tout de suite que tout ce qui a été mis en place, c'était un projet qui a été pensé, écrit, rien n'est laissé au hasard. Les cafés sont magnifiques, on a beaucoup de geishas, mais pas que. C'est une ferme toute en régénération, donc c'est une agriculture régénérative. Tous les produits qui sont faits pour entretenir les sols sont faits à la ferme. Felipe va nous parler de ça. Il n'y a pas un micro-organisme qui vient de l'extérieur, c'est même le contraire, c'est-à-dire que tous les compost qui sont faits à la ferme sont distribués souvent gratuitement aux producteurs autour, pour lesquels Felipe ensuite fait les process et vend le kit.
Felipe Sardi est un entrepreneur insatiable, expert en finance, spécialisé dans les sciences agricoles et les modèles de permaculture. Il est un homme qui maîtrise toute la chaîne de production et s'illustre dans ses divers projets par des pratiques engagées. De la ferme à l'exportation, du torréfacteur au coffee shop et même de l'accompagnement stratégique, financier et agronomique de producteurs vers une caféiculture plus propre. Dans sa ferme modèle, la Palma et le Tucan, créée en 2011, véritable exemple de ferme agroécologique, Felipe exprime toute sa vision en conciliant excellence et durabilité. En 2019, un sidra est d'ailleurs utilisé, un sidra de sa ferme, par la championne sud-coréenne Jo Young, pour remporter les championnats du monde de barista. Cette excellence s'appuie donc sur un écosystème hors norme, des variétés rares, mais également des process de fermentation innovants et d'une rigueur scientifique peu commune. Let's give a warm welcome to Felipe Sardi.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you, Christophe. First thing I'd like to say, of course, is thank you very much for inviting me here. It's an honor to be part of this event, sharing a space with you all, with some wonderful coffee producers. Thank you. And I hope we can make more of these wonderful events that join the consumers, roasters, and producers, not only in Europe, but world around. So I know I don't have a lot of time. I will have some really cool slides that I'd like to share with you, but I will follow the guidelines here, so please, as you wish.
So there are many things to say with you, as you have a very wide role in the coffee industry, being a coffee producer, having a green exporting company, working with other people to help them help their sustainable way of farming. So I actually don't know where to start from. Perhaps we can start from your coffee, but if you have something larger that you want to say.
Sure, and before it gets cold, we can begin. A couple words. And La Palma y Tucan, which is this farm that we're going to talk about, is part of a bigger group that has a purpose, and it's to leave a biodiverse and habitable planet for future generations. And that's a difficult thing to do. Every year more difficult than the past. I'm not going to get into the numbers, but I'll tell you this. There's, I think, three ways in which we can turn around the system. We can follow the green revolution, which basically invites us to use a lot of chemical fertilizers, pesticides, and herbicides, and some people argue that that's the only way we can feed the world in 2050. I respect that, but I don't share that view, but that's view number one. Then we can do what they call the smart climate or smart tech, smart climate agriculture. You know, Bill Gates, Melinda Gates Foundation is following, is investing, and this is great. These are sensors, drones. This is precision-based agriculture like we see maybe in the global north for wine. I love this, but this is not a solution for origin, not at least for 12 million coffee families on the global south. And my invitation is that we follow the third path, which is nature-based solutions. So basically use nature to transform the ecosystem and even use it to ferment, in this particular case, coffee. So this is the Palma and Tucan 12 years ago. This is how we got into coffee with my wife. We bought a farm, as you can see there, it was highly eroded, the soil. At the rate that humanity is losing soil, we only have about 40 crops left. 40 years left of soil. And I'm talking about topsoil, organic matter, because soil is 25% water, air, minerals, but the organic matter, that's what we're losing, and we're losing it at a very fast pace, so 40 probes. So what do? We start using nature-based solutions, which I've been studying for over a decade. I went to Melbourne University, to Indonesia, worked with small-scale farmers. And basically, use nature with everything that it can offer, animals, microorganisms, insects, to restore soil. And then, this is again, the Palma Tucan, 10 years later, with 100 and so associated species of trees, many more species of birds, of course insects, and a soil that is holding up biodiversity, that gives life to different processing methods. And I just want to mention a study back in 1996 here in France that basically tried different Comté cheeses that were, three of them actually, two of them were cultured with commercial yeasts, commercial starters, and one was left untouched. And the complexity of flavor and the chemical composition of the last one was unbeatable. And this is the same thing that applies to coffee and, as many of the other producers mentioned, terroir and complexity.
So Felipe, we understand that behind your coffees, of course, there are a huge care for the ecosystem, and we can see the liveliness of these coffees. One part of this is perhaps the rich soil and material in which they grow in. I'm very surprised always by the cleanliness of your coffees. Both of these coffees are really bright and delicate. You have a lot of transparency. I know that apart from, of course there is a lot going on, because apart from using very rare and very precious varieties, you involve a lot into the fermentation process. Could you please tell us more about the first geisha lactic, so the white one that we have here?
Sure. So, to tell you a little bit about how we do the fermentation process, I'm just going to guide you through three basic steps. Metabolic pathways, microorganisms activity, and acidification and sugar breakdown. I'm not going to get too technical, but this is important. So what do I mean by this? You can transform food, through fermentation, which is what we're going to talk about, oxidation, hydration, or enzymatic breakdowns. And I'm just going to get into fermentation. So the lactic coffee that we're tasting here, Patrick, was basically produced in an anaerobic environment, so that lactic acid bacteria, Lactobacillus, could strive and produce higher amounts of lactic acid than in other types of fermentations. So we're trying to keep it very true to the variety and to the terroir without overpowering the variety, because we could do long hours of anaerobic and we could hide many of the things that these kind of, but we try to get the balance, and this is the most difficult part to get right, unfortunately.
And this is a coffee for everyone to know, this is a coffee that is often used in competition and that has won some World Championship. Also because of this tactile sensation that is amazing. You have this the lactic acidity, or the process, the way it's done, it creates this mouthfeel that is almost like rich and coating while being still very bright and juicy. So I think that's a very interesting one, and this is the one that you devoted yourself to for a long time. But you are also pushing other boundaries with the pH clarity process?
So yeah, we wanted to get a coffee that was bright in acidity, clean, so we go back to the traditional methods, but with a different type of process. And pH, as I mentioned earlier, is a way of controlling or very modifying fermentation. Because enzymatic reactions, which is a way also to produce breakdown, sugar breakdown, are not the same in different pH levels. So for instance, if you are able to control pH above 6, you get different types of enzymes, microorganisms producing different types of enzymes. Because remember that when you ferment, you produce ethanol, organic acids like citric acid, malic acid, lactic acid, and CO2. But as you go on the fermentation, the acidity spikes, so the pH drops. So we thought if we're able to control the pH levels, say about 6, what would happen with the enzymatic reactions? And we are just discovering this. This is called pH clarity, is messing around with pH levels, say with a base. Calcium carbonate, for instance, is one of the bases that we use to stop the acidification process, and it's pretty fun to see how the profiles change.
All right, Felipe, let's go in a deeper conversation. Now, especially in Colombia, we have trends that we face for the specialty world, which leads to this very small thing here, non-infused coffee that Pepe gently gave to me. This one, thank you. It's very interesting because in Colombia right now we see more and more coffee producers relying on adding things into the fermentation to add flavors, perhaps increase the tactile sensation quality, and at the very end increase the price that they can sell the coffee to, which we absolutely agree with. It's very interesting because at La Palma and Tucan, you approach this with a very specific way, as since a long time you've been starting to cultivate the own yeast and bacteria that you have in the farm, and you try to place it in your coffee trees and fermentation. How does it work?
So thank you, Pierre. I think that we can give a lot of complexity to the coffees without relying on external inputs. So the same as a nature-based solution, the solution is there, right there in the ecosystem. So just look for it. Of course, do it with experts. So I'm going to show you a way that we do it. This is, for instance, a coffee processing method that uses what Pierre is saying, the own microorganisms strains that we produce at the farm. And we partner up with a microbiology lab, of course. It's a very well-known national university in Colombia lab, one of the most famous. So they can characterize the type of microorganisms that we have in our soils. Then, of course, we need to choose those that actually affect coffee fermentation. And within those, there's thousands of different strains, or hundreds sometimes. We have to prove and try and try and try again. But the answer, in our opinion, lies within the own ecosystem, beneath our own feet. So this is what we're trying to do, keeping out external agents that are not directly related to the coffee fermentation, like infused or buying yeasts from abroad. We don't like that. We don't buy yeasts from the beer industry, from the wine industry. We respect that, but that belongs to a different product, a different ecosystem. Because we think that the balance is within the ecosystem that we are in. So we try to operate in that way with the bio-washed and bio-natural coffees that are not represented here, but you'll soon get some. I think during the afternoon.
And that for us is a very big concern, as specialty coffee is a very modern and very is a young place compared to wine, or it's a young market. So we see more and more, like we struggle and we face the same challenges that once were in the wine industry with adulteration and preservation of the quality. So we must be very aware about how is going to change this industry, and we support, of course, all the farms and all the people that go in this sense and that preserve the notion of terroir, because at the end this is what it's all about. In Colombia, a lot of people produce a lot of different coffees, but here we can taste that we are in La Palma and Tucan. This is true to your land and to the work that is achieved.
Thank you, Pierre. It doesn't always go right. It's a lot of risk and definitely a lot of complexity in both producing, roasting, drinking these coffees. But we rather take the risk together with minded roasters like you, like Delta Cafe, like Pierre, like Christophe, because if you give us a chance to try and find a way in which we can help perfect coffees that are produced within the natural ecosystem, I think we will eventually have something very different. And as you can see here, 3 different types of fermentation times, bricks, everything gives different profiles without touching them from the outside.
And also, I mean, these coffees that we taste that are absolutely delicious, it's very interesting because we've been layering with all the talks and the coffee tasting since the morning that these coffees are very fine, these coffees are very delicate. So, of course, if you throw these cups to someone who has never heard about specialty coffee, that could be confusing. This high level of acidity, this clarity, the fact that it's very delicate. So the fact that you work this way is not always the easy way, and we must be very aware that at the end, everyone who produces coffee needs to live with it. So that works if the income is equal to the amount of work that you put in. So thanks to you, thanks to projects like La Palma Tucan, who can inspire others. I believe we can go deeper in this preservation of terroir and hopefully have people that are able to pay for it.
Thank you, Pierre. Just one last thing, if I may, about the acidity that you mentioned. I remember that when you get altitude, you stress the plant with the delta temperatures between day and night. They get stressed and they don't produce enough, so they rather produce more sugars in the mucilage. And from sugars, you derive more acidity. So acidity is an attribute. We modulate it properly. It's better to have acidity than not to have it at all, because it's very easy to kill acidity, but you can never get it without a good processing from the farm. So thank you very much for trying these new coffees, and let's keep experimenting together.
Thank you very much.